Okay, so I'm going to be recording the second part of my reaction to the therapy scene in Adolescence. So I think there was a slight issue in the first recording with my video footage, so hopefully this one works a bit better this time. But I'm basically just going to be picking up from where I left off in the last video, and again just going to give you some insights, things I pick up on that I think are sort of happening in the session. And yeah, just sort of my general reflection. So we'll just pick up on the video from where I left off last time, and yeah, let's get some reaction to this therapy scene.
This all started because I said you sounded like a granny, and now you're just going on about masculine stuff.
Yes?
The first time you came, you had actual questions. Is this right, Jamie? Do you know whether this is wrong, Jamie? Now you're just chatting shit.
I hope I'm not.
Well, you are, because...
Okay, so I kind of wanted to pick up on it to begin with, just I guess following on from the last time with this, is that one thing I was thinking about is that this kind of whole setting between the two of them is a pretty inauthentic place to be. I don't really know the purpose of kind of what happens with the questions that she asks and the information she gets, whether this ends up going to court in some way, but what was happening in the first video is he was clearly getting frustrated by her questions, and part of me was thinking, well, is part of that down to the fact that actually he knows really that she's not trying to be nice to him, and she's just kind of trying to get fish information out of him, really. So I was wondering if part of that frustration is about, you see it there to begin with already. It's like, oh, what the hell are these questions that you're asking me right now? And he's beginning to get frustrated. So yeah, I was sort of thinking, is this kind of an understandable, normal reaction to somebody who's clearly got a sort of a ulterior motive to why they're asking this, or is the frustration more about the fact that he struggles to kind of talk about personal things? So we'll just kind of keep an eye on that as it moves forward, really, about kind of if we see sort of part of the reason why he's getting as frustrated as he is.
The first time you're all, if an adult guinea pig eats one of its kids, is that normal or weird? Now you're, what do you call bread?
Come on.
It just feels like a trick.
Trick? Trick into what?
Okay, and do you notice her sort of reaction to it right now? She's a little bit deer in the headlights sort of response to this. She's getting a little bit anxious and nervous. She sort of sat back a little bit. So, yeah, she's potentially sort of feeling a little bit sort of put out in this moment, whether the anxiety is because he's beginning to get a bit annoyed, or whether it's because he's kind of firing these sort of questions and things back at her, that she's a little bit startled by this. So yeah, I think this has kind of knocked her a little bit in these questions. So let's sort of see how she sort of responds to this.
My dad's okay. All right?
Okay, I know.
Just talking about him. There isn't a need.
Fine. If that's how you feel.
Okay, so it's kind of an interesting response to that, because what he's basically saying is, my dad is fine, so why do we need to talk about him? The voice of that effect of what he's just said. So, which kind of makes me think of, well, if he's fine and if he's okay, what would be the issue? What would the issue be right now in talking about him? Because in the sense that, if he is fine and okay, and they start to have a conversation about him, then kind of, that's fine, right? That nothing's going to come up from that. So I think sometimes when people kind of do this really sort of, I'm putting the barrier up right now and saying, look, he's fine, he's okay, we don't need to go there, it's kind of can be a bit defensive, because the potential might be that if they do actually start looking a bit more at his dad right now, that it's going to turn out that there are things about him that aren't okay. So I wonder if that's kind of part of why he's getting a bit defensive right now in response to talking about dad, is that actually it's not that it's just dad's fine and why are we having this conversation, but maybe there are bits about dad that aren't okay, and I'd rather you just kind of back off and not talk about him any more than you are doing right now.
Feel, but I'm not trying to trick you.
Now I've pissed you off.
No.
Okay, and that's interesting that he's said that then, because he's accused her of being annoyed at him, but actually in that segment that she wasn't angry at him. If anything, she looked a little bit scared by him in that moment, or at least scared by the questions that he was asking. So I wonder, because actually in that segment, really, the only person that was annoyed was him. And yet what's happened right now is he says, oh, you're annoyed at me. So this can be something called projection, where what happens is that parts of ourselves that we don't like, we project onto other people. And this kind of isn't really a conscious thing that you'd be aware of happening. For him in this moment, it might feel really real that, oh, well, there was anger here right now in the room, and it must be coming from you. So yeah, I wonder if there's a bit of a tendency to project out his feelings here, because he was the one that was angry. He was getting annoyed by her questions. She actually looked quite nervous, began to shut down a bit in response. She didn't show any signs of anger. Yet for him right now, he's saying, well, you're kind of pissed off with me. So he's kind of potentially projecting his own anger onto her. So yeah, we'll see sort of how she responds to that right now, because that can be difficult to manage, because in a sense, when somebody projects something onto you and accuses you of something that you're not doing, it's kind of hard to navigate, because what do? You just sort of deny it and say, well, that's not really what's happening, or so let's see how she kind of handles this accusation right now.
Do you notes what you've got written down about me?
Do you see me writing anything down?
You must write stuff down.
Yes.
Can I see what you wrote? What you've written?
Of course you can't.
Well, Dylan and the other lawyers said you work for us.
That's not what they say, Jamie, and I know that because I asked them the last time you said that to me.
You talked to them.
I've explained this. I've been employed by your team, but I don't work for you.
What did you tell them?
I'm writing an independent. That's a very important
What did
word.
he say?
Okay, so there's a definite rise in his frustration right now towards her, and she did like a little scowl there. It felt like, just watching her there, that she's really trying hard not to get pulled into this dynamic of the frustration between the two of them. So there was a little scowl, but she's trying her best to sort of remain firm in her responses back to him. But yeah, you could really start to feel that rise in sort of frustration. He's kind of firing these questions at her. He's sort of testing. It feels kind of like testing her out right now, and she's sort of trying to stay firm. But yeah, she's starting to get a little bit annoyed, or it seemed that she was getting a little bit frustrated, sort of back, which again kind of fits in with that the first video of what we watched. Really, is that there's this tendency for this kind of ebb and flow of the frustration and tension between the two of them to sort of rise. So I think that she's beginning to get a bit annoyed by him right now, which, you know, if somebody starts firing loads of questions at you in kind of this frustrated jabbing at you way, then you might feel frustrated. So yeah, let's see kind of how she manages those feelings.
Okay, an independent pre-sentence offence report, which the judge will read in order to get an understanding of you and your understanding of the charges. Okay? All I want to do is talk to you, Jamie, and have you talk to me.
Okay, so I mean, interested to see what he's just began to do with his face there, but it felt like in that moment what she was trying to do was sort of, again, kind of alleviate that tension that's happening in the situation. She's saying, all I want to do right now is sort of almost like work together. You know, I'm here right now for us to work together. That's all I want from this, is for us to work together and go through these questions. So there was that rise in tension again, the frustration between the two of them that was beginning to build. And she's trying to sort of lower that really in this. She's sort of trying to get, again, some agreement between the two of them of like, okay, well, let's look at things together right now. Okay, we don't need to sort of end up in this sort of fight argument type thing. Let's just work together. Let's get some agreement here, and that's all I'm here to do, nothing else. But I mean, it looks like he's beginning to yawn right now, so I think we can see what he feels about that. But let's just see kind of what his response really is in this moment. I'll just go back a few seconds and then we can watch it, see what he does.
All I want to do is talk to you, Jamie, and have you talk to me. Yes, I've asked some straightforward questions, but I think... Am I boring you?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so that's a really dismissive response, isn't it? That like the yawn is like, I can't even be bothered to engage in this. You are boring me. And look at this. Look at the smile on his face right now. Like this kind of like, she's trying in this moment to get them collaborating, engaging together, and he's just done this big yawn, which is a bit of it's basically like a massive FU, isn't it? Saying like, oh, I'm bored, I don't want to be here, and then a little knowing smile back. So yeah, he's not having any of it really. That she's tried to invite him into engage together, and he's just been dismissive of her by the looks of it. You know, that kind of passive aggressive, sort of yawn.
I think you, and everyone else for that matter, are far more complex than straightforward questions allow for. We had a good conversation last time. Could we try that again?
Okay, so again, she's really trying hard here to get this back on track and collaborate. You know, that's kind of, I felt like quite empathic in that. It's like, look, you are complex. Like, I'm gonna appeal to you in that way. Let's get back on track. Let's get back to working together right now. So again, she's really trying hard in this moment to try and keep this conversation going and working together between the two of them.
What did we talk about last time?
We spoke about your friends, your sister, your mum. We went all over the place.
Can't remember saying anything about them.
Ah, well, you did. And how you feel about them. How well Lisa's doing, what you think your mum thinks of
What,
you.
and now you want to talk about my dad?
Well, I want to talk about lots of things.
And he's really fighting back, isn't he, in that moment? You see there, like, look, we had this really good conversation, it went well, and he's like, no, we didn't, I don't remember anything about that whatsoever. So he's still being prickly in this. And again, like I said to begin with, that this isn't an inauthentic situation. This isn't kind of a normal therapy session in the sense of he knows explicitly that what she's doing is there to help him. He might think, well, you're doing this for a particular reason, to get certain information out of me. So, that kind of, you can see that response in him. Is this response that he's giving right now, is this not what you would kind of maybe do yourself in this situation if this person's trying to get information out of you and trying to act nice and you're not sure if that's what's really happening? But yeah, he's prickly, he's pushing back against it. She's trying to remind him, look, we had this good conversation, let's try and get that back on track, but he's pushing back on it.
I could tell you the questions that I wrote down to talk to you about today, if that helps.
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so he's a bit more in agreement there, isn't he? So again, she's just another layer. I'm going to tell you about the questions. It's kind of like almost like I'm going to pull back the curtain here. I'm just going to be really honest with you, and he's had a little bit of an agreement there. So maybe that's a sign that he's going to come back on board in this.
Well, I wanted to talk about the fight you had.
I thought that was nothing.
I was interested why you got in a fight.
He hit me first.
Why?
Because we've had beef over stuff. It doesn't matter, it wasn't a proper fight.
You're telling me it's not that interesting?
It's not.
Okay, let's move on.
Well, I'm in charge now, am I?
Maybe. I also wrote down that I want...
Okay, so there she's just trying to bring a little bit of humour in again, which was kind of that way that it soothed itself out in the last video that I looked at here. So again, she's a little smile. He engaged a little bit more. He was still prickly, but maybe a little less prickly. So maybe they're kind of moving now towards a little bit more of an engagement between the two of them.
to talk to you about what being a man feels like.
You want a cock and balls, do you?
I'm interested in what being a man feels like for you.
I don't know.
It's too big a question, right? And the fight's too small a question. Which is why it's more useful for me to see where the conversation goes and...
Kind of I smiled then at that bit, because this is really a difficult situation to... I'm just thinking about her and what it must be like being in this. It's a bit like kind of being in a boxing match where you're constantly like having to swerve and out of the way of punches. She keeps trying to engage with him, and so it feels like she's constantly just trying to find new avenues in to get some conversation. He just kind of bats it back with his sarcastic comments or his frustrations or his passive aggressiveness. there's like moments where he starts to engage, but then he pulls back again. So she's like, it feels like she's constantly sort of trying to swerve and figure out ways to get this conversation going again.
Steer it a bit into what you think of your dad and your granddad, for instance. The type of men you think they are. Rather than saying, so, Jamie, what do you think being a man feels like?
So, Jamie, what do you think being a man feels like?
It's not a trick. It's just a conversation. So do you think it would be okay if we speak about your dad a bit?
Okay, so I really like that intervention there, because that's consent. And, you know, she's asked him there, is it okay if we talk about your dad? So, in that moment there, she's actually asked him if this is okay, which I think is really important, you know, in a session like this, or, you know, or in therapy, is that really you need consent. Like, it's not okay. There's a power imbalance potentially within therapy as it is. And if you don't get consent from the other person, then you're kind of just leading it all yourself, and you're going to end up in a mess. Because if the person's sitting there thinking, well, you're just asking me loads of questions and I don't really want to talk about this, then you're just in a constant battle. Whereas if he says right now, yeah, no, that's fine, I'm fine, we can talk about it, then you're opening that door a bit more to that conversation. So I do think consent can be really important. So I really like that intervention that she's asked him there. You know, is this okay for us to talk about? So let's see how he responds. I mean, he could just go, no, I don't want to talk about it. You know, that can be the response. But we'll see how he responds to you know, being asked if it's okay.
Can I just see your notes? What you wrote, how you wrote it?
Nope. You're not that in charge. Does your dad like his job?
He fixes toilets.
Okay, so that's problematic in that bit right there, because she didn't get consent from him to talk about dad. His response, he pushed back again, didn't he, in his response? I think he was sort of trying to put it back onto her in a bit. But what happened is that she asked him about his dad anyway, even though that she hadn't got any consent from him, which it's kind of almost worse than asking for no consent, because you've basically asked him if it's okay. He hasn't given you any response, and you've asked anyway. So it's almost like saying, I'm asking you, but I actually don't really care what your response is. I'm just going to keep asking you the questions anyway, which is kind of like that's really going to end up in a mess, because he knows now that he doesn't really have a say in this, because she's just asked anyway. So yeah, for me, that can only create problems in this session between the two of them, that she didn't get consent from him and she asked him anyway. So yeah, let's see kind of how he responds with that.
What do you think? He works hard, long hours. You get the best money for emergency plumbing out of hours, you know.
Is he funny?
Sometimes.
Loving?
No, that's weird.
Angry?
I suppose.
Okay, that's quite a sad response, isn't it, that? Because she asked him, is your dad loving? And he's gone, no, that's weird. Like, the idea that your dad would show you love is weird, maybe, which is kind of... Or maybe, the other bit, I suppose you could think is it's weird for him to admit that his dad shows him love or talk about love. But, that's kind of... It's really sad. I think that's really sad. That was my kind of feeling in hearing that it's sad to think that he in some way would see it as weird for his dad to show him love, or for him to acknowledge that his dad loves him. That's kind of a very shaming place to be, I think.
How angry does he get?
He's never hit me.
Okay, go on.
Go on what? Is that what this is all about?
Well, why do you call him angry?
He just gets mad. We all do.
Okay, that's okay. He's just angry in a normal way.
He's pulled a shed down once when he was in a proper rage, but that's...
So I think that kind of gives us a bit of insight into Dad there, maybe, that he's somebody that can't contain his anger fully. If you think about what he said there, that he pulled a shed down through his anger. Now, it might well be that was kind of a one-off situation, but but it also might suggest that dad is somebody that can't contain his anger. And of course, if a parent can't contain their anger, then it might well be that, you know, kids can't contain their anger because they've, of course, you know, that parents need to be able to manage emotions in order to show kids how to manage their emotions. So, and I'm guessing that's kind of why this line of inquiry is where she's gone with this, really, is that dad. So, but yeah, it gives us a bit of a picture here. Dad is somebody that can't contain anger, that he can kind of be a bit explosive with it. Yeah, so let's see what else he
As
says.
bad as it gets.
Were you frightened?
No, I thought it was quite funny at the time. Lisa did too then.
Okay, so it's kind of an interesting response, isn't it? They're like, yeah, I'm not bothered by my dad getting so angry that he's torn down a shed, that it was quite funny. So that kind of almost feels a bit like, is that a bit like kind of a laddie position of like, oh, I don't ever feel scared about things. Like, I'm fine. I need to put that front on things. Or I suppose the other way you could think about it is because you said it was kind of a funny thing, is that sometimes things that happen within families can be turned into something that's kind of humorous as a way of, it's like a coping mechanism, you know, that we tell ourselves stories about what happens and we kind of laugh about it as a way of covering up when something is bad. So it might be that the kind of use of humor within the family is a way of like, oh, isn't it funny that dad gets so angry that he smashes things up. And if you take the humour out and say, well, my dad got so angry that he smashed a shed to pieces, then that feels a lot more of a scary thing to do. So yeah, so there's maybe some defences that he has around this, whether it's that kind of male front on it of, you know, I'm not bothered by it, or whether kind of something humour within the family, a way that they retell it to kind of, sort of dilute actually kind of how serious it was.
Mum sent us upstairs. He's not like that most of the time. Hardly ever.
What does he do when he's not working?
It just feels like you're testing him.
No, I'm just interested in your view of him. He's a big presence in your life. He was your appropriate adult.
Yeah, because he doesn't judge. He's a kind person.
That's good to know.
Okay, so we get kind of we get the good side of dad as well in that he doesn't judge, that he's a kind person. So it's pretty clear that he has a sense of warmth and love really towards his dad is my guess on that, even though he says it's kind of weird to acknowledge that. But yeah, that he can see his dad in that way too, that he's this good person and he's kind. So, you know, dad isn't just this kind of angry person. He had this angry sort of outburst maybe, but also, yeah, he's a good, kind, warm guy from what he's saying here.
So what does he do when he's not working?
He basically likes all sport. My mum always said if you watch lawn bowls, he'd make it fun.
Would you watch lawn bowls with him?
No, it's not for me.
You're not into sport?
No.
None of...
So I feel like we've definitely had a shift in the conversation now, because before, like, there was no conversation going on. They were just kind of fighting each other. It was going nowhere. But there's a definite shift now in the conversation. Like, he's still prickly. He's still kind of holding back, which is fair enough. Again, he didn't consent to this conversation. And she's still asking questions about his dad. But he's a bit more engaged in the conversation right now. We're finding out a little bit more. So she's kind of found her way in. Again, I still think it's a bit messy because she has no agreement with him. But there's a definite sort of shift in tone now that they're a little bit more collaborating, I guess, in this.
Yeah, I'm not good at much, but I'm really good at getting out of PE.
How'd you do that then?
Oh, headaches, hurt my leg, funny tummy. Oh, sir, I feel dizzy, can I sit down? That sort of thing.
What does your dad make of that?
He doesn't know.
Okay, so that feels really sad in that moment there again. Like, his whole body language shifted when she asked him about whether dad knows about this. You know, he was kind of really scratching. He was wriggling his chair, which is kind of uncomfortable, anxious tension in response to this. He looks down, you know, look how he's gone right now. He's hidden He's hidden his eyes from view, which can be a sign of somebody beginning to experience shame. I hide myself away from the eyes of others because it's a way of protecting me from the shame that I feel right now. So that this obviously touched on something for him here, that he hasn't told his dad that he doesn't get involved in PE. He's had to kind of make up all these excuses as well. He couldn't just go to Dad and say, Dad, I really don't like PE, I don't want to play, can you help me sort of get out of it? It's hide it from Dad, and also then make up excuses. So there's obviously this is something painful for him right now, the idea of Dad knowing that he doesn't do PE. So yeah, maybe it gives a bit of insight into, again, how Dad might react, or kind of his perception of what his dad might think about him if he realised that he doesn't do sport, especially when he said that his dad absolutely loves sport. So this might be something around that dynamic between the two of them.
He knew I wasn't sporty or anything like that. He used to take me to football. this football thing on Saturdays, and he'd cheer me on and everything, but when I'd fuck up, he'd just...
Okay, now this is clearly touching on something very painful for him right now. Like, again, his whole body changed, there's lots of sighing, and again, sighing is a sign of something emotional beginning to rise. His eyes, they're kind of all over the place. He's really avoiding eye contact right now with her, which again, to me, would suggest shame. So there's something here around, him doing something with his dad, playing sport, and like just the pain in this for him. That this obviously is something that he feels really ashamed of. Even the language used there, that when I fucked up, which is kind of like, well, what? How does a kid fuck up playing football? Like what, they're not good enough at it, or like kind of, it's a really punishing use of language, around it. What's the big deal if you can't play football? There's many other things that you can do instead. So yeah, this feels something really, really shameful for him, really painful that his dad might see him in this way.
He'd just look away.
Pretend he didn't.
Okay, so lots of sighing. So to me, there's probably like a big rising feeling, and he's just sort of trying to hold it back. The idea that his dad looked away at him when he messed up, when he was playing football. So this is really, in my sense, is touching on something really painful for him right now. The idea that his dad looked away when he wasn't doing very well at playing football.
See?
Maybe, or maybe he just didn't want me to see him looking sorry.
Sorry?
I don't know. Ashamed.
Okay, so we can really get a sense here of how painful it is for him at the idea that his dad would be ashamed of him. Again, he's looking away, and obviously this would be really painful. Of course, like there's the shame. Shame suggests that I am not good. Shame. If he feels shame, then it's a sense that you as a person aren't good enough. Not that I'm perfectly great as a person, but I can't play football. That's very different than it's really shameful. It's like saying I'm not good enough because I can't play football, and my dad looks away when I try and play. Because he's ashamed of me. So this is kind of, really painful that he would imagine that his dad would think this about him.
How did you feel when you saw that shame?
You're supposed to say he wasn't.
Am I?
Yeah. You're supposed to say, oh, but he wasn't ashamed. But he just thought that, Jamie. Or is it what you really think? He wouldn't be ashamed, not of his kid.
Have other people said that?
Okay, so that's a really powerful reaction he's had to that there, hasn't he? That it sounds like he was hoping that she would reassure him that there's no way that his dad would feel ashamed of him. And he's kind of, the fact that she didn't do that, which in a sense, she doesn't have to do that. That's a position she has to take. She's not here to reassure him in that way. But the idea that she didn't reassure him, it sounds like that's kind of been really painful. And my sense would be, why would that be painful if somebody doesn't just reassure you? Because normally that if you kind of believe something to be true, which if we take for this example, which is my dad is ashamed of me because I'm not good enough in his image of what he would want me to be, then reassurance in a way acts as a way of somebody external saying to me, no, actually it's fine, so therefore your view isn't true. But if somebody doesn't give you that, all you're left with is that belief that you have yourself, and the belief that he has then maybe is that he is ashamed to his dad, that his dad would see him as shameful and not good enough, and that's really painful. You know, that would be a massive amount of pain for him to just sort of sit with right now. So it might be that he's kind of lashing out in response to that because of the fact that there's a sense here that she hasn't alleviated the shame that he already feels about himself. You know, ultimately this already exists in him, and he's kind of annoyed that she didn't alleviate that feeling in him.
To you?
It's just the right thing to say.
Isn't it lying?
No. I don't know, I don't like lying.
Okay, so there's that gap of space again in that moment because the frustration has risen in him. There's a tension between the two of them again, so there's kind of this pause moment right now. So let's see what happens. Does it does it go further? Does the frustrations increase, or do they kind of alleviate that tension again?
I wasn't into school sports either.
You've got other stuff though, weren't you?
Why do you think that?
You look like you were and you...
Okay, so that's interesting, isn't it? That sort of, he was annoyed at her to begin with. He said, why didn't you reassure me? And she said, well, I don't have to. But then the next thing she does in a way is reassure him. It's like, well, it's kind of like meeting him on his level. Well, I wasn't very good at sports too. I didn't do any sports, which is kind of that reassurance. So whether something internally, you could imagine something inside for her in that moment is like, oh God, like he's really hurt by the fact that I didn't reassure him. Maybe I should say something right now to sort of make him feel a bit better, which again is that kind of let's alleviate the tension that's happening between the two of them. But obviously that's, it's quite clear that the idea that his dad would see him as not good enough is something that he has a real internal pain about. That was a strong reaction to being left with that sense of shame in this. So I think I'm going to pause again right now on sort of reacting to this. So again, there are a few themes sort of coming through in that. But what I'll do is I'll continue with another video where we'll look a little bit more about kind of how this continues. But yeah, we're getting a really nice sense here of kind of the dynamics between the two of them, and kind of this tension, this ebb and flow again that sort of seems to have come through in this section too.